Alright, hello and welcome everyone. So, the content drought is finally over. This is the Mainline 23.1 breakdown. Let's jump into this. There is a whole lot here, so I've condensed this down into the major talking points and things that you probably need to know going into this update. First and foremost is the surprise, the Chimera Prologue. So, this is a prologue much like what we got before the sacrifice, but this one is after the sacrifice, definitely teasing into the new war, which is going to be our next major quest. With that, I'm not going to spoil anything in the quest in this video. You can start this, however, in your fashion room, which is, of course, across from the Helminth room down by your operator quarters. I will say, however, that I really enjoyed this prologue. I think it was extremely well done in kind of just every way, and it's probably the most I've enjoyed a quest in Warframe since the War Within, which is absolutely a good sign because I really liked that quest. Shock and surprise. So I would encourage everyone, please do the Chimera Prologue. It is really cool. Moving on though, the main piece of this update, let's say, is the arbitrations. So these are the elite alerts we've been talking about for a while. These missions, you have one life only. If you die, you are dead. These are always endless missions, so there's survivals, defense, infested salvage, interception, etc. And these have the thing that a lot of people have been asking for a very long time, which is for rotations to be A, B, and then C over and over again. This makes it obviously very easy to farm the C rotations if you're a player that can go for a good length of time. With that, the C rotations, I will say, definitely have the best stuff, so this is an appropriate mission for the rotations to be like this. However, downside, rotations are doubled in length, and what I mean by that is, for in example, defense, rotations are every 10 waves instead of every 5, which is what we're used to. This is, of course, slower, but as someone who just right before I'm recording this streamed for 9 hours and played a metric fuckton of this game mode, I will say that I really enjoyed myself and I felt like the rewards are really good. These have exceedingly high endo rewards, and the mods that come from these, which we're going to talk about in a moment, are actually quite good on the whole, and there's definitely a few mods you're going to want there. With that, there is a restriction on getting into these elite alerts or arbitrations, and that is that you need to complete all of the star chart nodes in the game. Now, that might sound like a monumental task, but it's actually not that bad, especially for players that have been around a while, and because these are higher level missions, I think it's fine for it to be kind of experienced players only, and because of nightmare missions being in the game, you should already have been completing most planets, like all the way, so that you can do your nightmare missions. So I don't think it's actually going to be that much of an issue for people to hit that 227 threshold for getting into these missions. If you need to check what missions you're missing, you can go to the Arbiters of Hexes on any relay, and there will be a guy on the left the moment you walk into their area, and he will tell you what nodes you are still missing and need to do before you can start doing the elite alerts. And that is my one major gripe with the elite alerts, is that there's not a good system for onboarding. Before you unlock the elite alerts, if you go into the alert tab, which is where they are housed once you unlock them, they don't show up if you haven't unlocked them. They don't show up and just have a locked symbol on them and then tell you how to get to them. And that's a problem, because that means they're very hidden, but also extremely rewarding for those that know about it. And Warframe kind of has a problem with onboarding its users into the content that does exist in the game. So I'd really like to see DE change that to be more forward-facing. Obviously, you don't want to overload a player right off the bat and be like, oh, here on Earth, how about arbitrations? Complete everything in the game. But maybe around Mars or Ceres, DE could do something to push players towards that type of content and give them a big, more overarching goal, let's say. Anyway, enough nitpicking on that. Basically, these missions will have a mission rotation and buff rotation every hour, so it'll change from defense, survival, etc. But in addition to that, there will be 2 buffs for you only present on going into a mission. These things, as far as I've seen, are simply plus 300% damage on a given Warframe and on a given weapon. This is kind of a trap, I will say, because as much as it may seem appealing to have Titania with plus 300% strength, that, in my eyes, is still simply not good enough, especially for what the elite alerts ask of you in the modes that they ask it of you. Basically, no matter what you give Titania, really, no matter what percentages you add in only one area, she's still not really going to be as good as, say, a Rhino or a Mesa at a mission like Interception. Titania's just not good at that mode, so I would encourage people to not fall into the trap of just using the frame that it says gets a bonus, because you will likely die doing that, choosing frames that are not good for the given mission. Anyway, the other material that you're going to be getting from every single rotation you do in these alerts is the Vitus Essence, which is a recolored Nitane. Not that that is a problem. And this will give you access to a couple of the new mods and also a variety of cosmetics, which I hope get expanded in the future. But I gotta say, so far, pretty happy with the cosmetics that I have. The emblem, gotta say, way, way better than it looks like from the preview. Would encourage people to grab that, as it is also the cheapest thing you can get from these rewards. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about the new mods in this update. And this is not all of them. There are also some new Sentinel mods, but I will leave the Sentinel mods at saying that I don't think either of them are good for much of anything, though feel free to experiment with them. The Death Cube one, on its face, may look like it has some potential to some people, but I think it's just bad. Anyway, let's talk about these new mods that you're going to be getting from arbitrations. First and foremost, Sharpshooter. This is a sniper mod, and it gives you plus 15 energy on headshot kill. It's very gimmicky, and I don't think a lot of players are going to use this, especially because this and all of the other mods we're about to talk about are a 10 rank mod, but it's potentially cool in certain scenarios. If this was on headshot, it would be absolutely amazing, and I could see a lot of people using this to generate a really, really considerable amount of energy for themselves. But because it is on headshot kill only, I think it's like just slightly too restrictive to be a mainstay in anyone's builds, unless they're specifically going for that gimmicky nature. But it's a cool mod nonetheless. They're kind of experimenting with something that I personally wasn't expecting, at least. And then let's talk about Cautious Shot. So you'll see in my notes that I've called this mod absolute dog shit, and that is because it gives you minus 90% self-damage, minus 15% total damage. So this is for explosive weapons that can kill you, obviously, and this is honestly like the most ridiculously terrible, like kind of insultish mod, because most players, I think, would want their weapons to just simply not self-damage and murder them. And even if you equip this mod, a variety of explosive weapons will still fucking kill you, because it turns out that some of those weapons, like the lens, 10% of that damage is enough to kill most Warframes in the entire game, so this doesn't help at all. That is extremely unfortunate, and this mod is absolutely fucking terrible. So there's that. And then let's talk about Power Donation, the only not ranked 10 mod here because it is an aura. This has the same aura value as Steel Charge, for those of you that want another high value mod. And this gives you minus 30% power strength, which you might be scratching your head going, that doesn't, but why? Why would I have an aura that decreases my power strength? And that is because it gives plus 30% power strength to all of your teammates. So if you were to run a constructed group and all of you had this, you would all get a net gain of plus 60% strength, which is obviously, that's pretty desirable for a lot of Warframes. Plus 60% strength is quite good. But in particular for this mod, this can be used by Nova. Only equipping this and not needing to use Overextended to dunk your strength further means that you are going to be Spiva without having to use Overextended, which is quite nice. And as a bonus, you're going to give your entire team 30% strength, which I'm sure they will appreciate, unless they are also trying to be Spiva, in which case you have a problem. I think this is really cool. It also increases the upper limit for how fast Spiva can make enemies, which is a little ridiculous based on my testing, and probably not something you would really want to do, so probably don't combine Overextended and this mod together, but I think this has definite group comp potential, because it's just, like, plus 60% strength. That's pretty good. If your entire squad needs it, you're definitely going to be into it. Moving on, we have Vigorous Swap. So Vigorous Swap is maybe good. This gives you plus 165% damage, which for those wondering is an entire serration's worth of damage, for 3 seconds, and plus 100% holster speed. So, whenever you're switching between your weapons, you're getting another serration's worth of damage. This has the potential to be good, but unfortunately this is not multiplicative with serration and is instead additive with that bonus. So instead of getting a 165% bonus damage at the end, like say how Condition Overload is calculated, you're getting it in addition to the buff from serration, which is considerably less good, but still fine. I don't see this mod seeing a ton of use, but maybe in certain niches, maybe there's a way to squeeze a little bit more damage out of a chroma for Eidolons or something with this mod, but I just don't really see it overall. Moving on, we have Rolling Guard. So Rolling Guard is a really interesting mod, and basically, when you dodge, you become invulnerable and you remove all status effects on your Warframe. Now, those of you might be thinking, well, this sounds absolutely incredible. Why would I not use that on every Warframe? 3 seconds of invulnerability, I could just roll again. Well, this mod has a cooldown of 7 seconds, unfortunately, so the Warframe that is in the best position to make use of this mod is actually Limbo, because you dodge out of the rift, you have 3 seconds to deal with any problems that are out of the rift that you need to, and then you simply dodge back into the rift, and you're invincible for the entire time you need to be solving problems outside of the rift. For Limbo, this is an incredibly good tool that I think a lot of Limbo players will really appreciate having access to. And finally, I think the best mod here, Adaptation. This mod, basically, if you get shot with a damage type, you get 10% resistance to that damage type for 20 seconds. That stacks up to 90% damage resistance to that given type for 20 seconds, and the duration refreshes. That is not for only one either physical or elemental type of damage at a time. It can be for all of them at once. So if you are being bombarded with, say, bullets from a heavy gunner, you're going to be getting 90% damage reduction from that heavy gunner in very, very short order. This makes a lot of Warframes way, way more survivable, and it makes certain very survivable Warframes, like, say, Inaros, hilariously survivable. This is definitely the best mod of the bunch. It's really interesting. It basically just gives you sentient resistance, which is kind of a cool thing. And it makes me wonder why this isn't Revenant's passive. But disregarding that, let's move on to the new weapons in this update. And I gotta say, there are 3 to talk about, but one of them I can't talk about comes from the quest. That weapon will receive a why would you use, so please be patient for that. I'll leave it at, I think the weapon's really cool. The other 2, however, the Pupe Assist, this is a polearm. It seems absolutely fucking dreadful, with no redeeming feature I could find. Maybe not the best way to start. And the Falcor is an electric glaive that has a really cool slam attack, but not much else. And by not much else, I mean nothing else. So these are basically 2 new, seemingly mastery fodder weapons for us to look at. And then also the quest weapon, which, as I said before, will be receiving a why would you use, and is considerably more interesting. Then, as for wrapping up this breakdown, we have 4 things to talk about. So, first and foremost, this is the Daily Tribute update. Daily Tribute, for those who do not know, are the login rewards. So these all scale now, and they scale pretty considerably. As someone who's at like 900 some odd days, whenever I logged in credits, I was actually pleasantly surprised to see like 60,000 credits drop into my lap. That is really not bad. 60,000 credits is more than a lot of missions are going to reward you with, and I'm pretty okay with that. As a login reward, all it is logging in. Pretty good. Based on what I've seen from other people, what they're getting based on their days, the scaling seems to be really solid. And of course, the changes to what you're getting on what days and the choices that you're being given as you progress through your milestones are considerably better. I think this is just an overall huge improvement to the system at large, and everyone should be happy about it, basically. Moving on, though, the thing that I am not particularly happy about is Saren changes. Right after I did my update video on Saren's build, she has changed once again. Thankfully, these are not major changes, and as much as people want to scream nerf at this, I actually think it is considerably more of a buff than a nerf. So, her scaling is now not with 10 enemies, it is with 7. This is a small nerf, considering how fast Saren can scale given appropriate power strength. And in addition to that, this has the benefit of making it so you stay within the sweet spot of your spore damage, where it kills all of the fodder enemies but doesn't eliminate the heavies for longer. The reason you don't want to immediately eliminate the heavies with your 1 is so that when they die, they can spread their spores to the newly spawned fodder enemies, and so on and so forth. That sweet spot is hard to maintain, and actually having 7 enemies being your scaling makes it last considerably longer based on what I have tested. Along with that, though, a strict buff is that your 4 does half its damage. And you might be wondering, that's not how buffing works, and you'd be right. This now also does 4 times damage to any enemy affected by your 1, which every enemy should be affected by your 1 because you are Saren. So, in effect, this is doubling the damage of your 4 and making it much easier to do the cascade effect, where you hit 4, all the enemies with spores die, and then they spread spores to everyone around them, and then those guys die. Really, really effective way to kill an entire map as Saren, and I'm pretty happy about it. Moving on to things that I don't feel anything about is the Revenant changes. So Revenant basically is worse against nullifiers now. They properly resist his 4 and such. This doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. There are a lot of fixes to make him less buggy. In the grand scheme of things, he doesn't matter at all at current, and I do not really care about the changes to him, as they do not affect me in any real conceivable way. So Revenant is still irrelevant. Moving on, though, to a thing that matters a lot and was glossed over just as much as you could possibly gloss over a thing, just happens to be in the patch notes, just tucked away in the, just miscellaneous changes. The Staticore AoE got changed from 2 meters base to 8. It got multiplied by 4. That is a large explosion for a weapon that is this good. The Staticore has been, and still is, and even more is, an incredibly powerful, very good weapon that has a lot of different uses and multiple ways for it to be built, and this buff came out of fucking nowhere. The Staticore is absolutely mind-blowingly powerful, and there will be an updated YOGUs on this thing. It is absolutely ridiculous. We used it a ton during the stream. I cannot possibly say enough good things about what that change does for this weapon, because it is astronomical in how much better the weapon is now. Anyway, that is going to do it for the Mainline Update 23.1 breakdown. Hopefully I edited out one specific thing in here. If I didn't, I'll look real dumb though. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you tomorrow. As definite group comp potential